Welcome to this week's episode of Inside the Headset presented by CoachComm. This week, we sit down with Brennan Marion, the offensive coordinator at UNLV. In this conversation, Coach Marion discusses why building relationships with players is central to who he is, how he has continued to grow as a coach, and the origin of the go-go offense. But first, a word from CoachComm.
Deuce left, check with me. If they're in quarters match, we're going to Pittsburgh or Ohio.
They're in zero.
Let's go Hippo, Seattle, wide choice. If we call the protection right, it's 6.
When a play call is the difference between winning and losing, your headset choice could be your most important decision. When the call counts, CoachComm is the only choice for clear, dependable communication. Visit CoachComm.com for more info.
We got it, guys. Good job.
Now, let's get inside the headset with Coach Marion.
Coach Marion, what's happening, man? How you doing?
What's going on, Mario? Appreciate you, pal.
Yeah, man. It's always a good time when I can catch up with you. I know you spoke for us at this last convention, but I don't think I got to even spend very much time with you because you were either had a crowd around you or you were ripping on the go-go. How about that? You were on the go-go or just engage in conversation, man. But it's good to catch up with you right now.
No doubt, man. I appreciate you always looking out for me.
Yeah, no doubt, man. Well, let's go ahead and dive into this thing. And let me ask you the first question I've always asked. When did you decide you want to be a part of this great profession? What was kind of that defining moment for you?
Yeah, I really got, they always say those that can't, they have to start teaching as a player. So, when I got hurt, I was looking for an avenue of where I would go with life. And the first day I got on the football field, teaching and coaching, I just knew from that day forward that that's what I wanted to do. Just the energy that the kids brought, the ability to help someone get better, the stories and the connections. That really just changed my life. I knew I even tried to go back to playing, but I knew in my heart that day that I stepped on the field that, that I wanted to be a coach the rest of my life.
Yeah, man. I most people probably know you to some source via social media or via just a job you've done in a profession. But there's probably a handful of people that kind of remember that career that you had at Tulsa. No injury. We probably have a little bit different conversation about when you're getting started. Had probably a pretty good chance to go play at the next level. Once you kind of have that epiphany that you want to be a part of this profession, what were some of those things that you did to get yourself prepared for those first couple of jobs that we're going to talk about where you had a lot of responsibility?
Yeah, for me, at first it was really, I always say the kids saved my life. I didn't save the kids' life at first, because it was the relationships and the stories and, me seeing kids be in worse positions than I thought that I was in, growing up the way that I did. I thought that, my life was pretty hard. And then seeing kids that had worse situations and scenarios and seeing the positivity and the energy that they brought every day, it reminded me of me being that age and trying to find a way and make it. And all I wanted to do is be who I needed when I was younger. All I was trying to do is just be a great mentor, a great big brother, because I was 21, 22. I just turned 22 when I first started coaching. So, I was so close to their age, but so far, you feel like you're so far from that, but dealing with 14, 15, 16-year-olds. I remember, one of the greatest stories, a kid was living in a car with his dad. It was like 5 of them living in a truck. And I was like, I'll take one of the kids off your hand. Obviously I can't have your whole family in here, but I'll take 1 or 2 of the kids off your hands when they need it and let them live in my place and stuff. And it was just stuff like that where I was like, man, I'm just trying to be a good dude and help people out. It really wasn't about X's and O's or wanting to be a big time football coach when I first started. It was more about just trying to help some kids out and put them in a better situation than they were in.
Yeah. And that was your first gig at the high school level. You kind of maybe mention, how you grew up and that impact that you wanted to have on an age group. Is that a little bit why you started off at the high school level, just being able to kind of relate to just what you had just went through?
No, I tell people all the time, like, I really didn't want to coach, you know, at that age,
Yeah.
you know, like, for me, my life goal, honestly, was to, you know, play in the NFL for years and then, you know, open up community centers. I always wanted to just help people. You know, my grandmother was a crusader in the hood in Pittsburgh. Everybody knew her, and she'd go around the projects and stuff and bring kids to church and bring them closer to God. So, you know, for me, that was kind of like what I thought I would be doing, you know, when my football career was over.
Yeah.
When somebody brought up coaching to me, I was like, you know, them dudes, I was with Gus Malzahn and Norvell, and I saw them dudes sleeping in the office and stuff. I was like, bro, I'm not doing that coaching stuff. Like, them dudes are crazy.
Yeah.
You know, like, I'm not living like that. And, you know, just when I got with the kids and I saw how much impact I was having within their lives, and then it was like, okay. And then I started to see how the coaches were moving and how they were operating. And, you know, like the systems that I ran were just copy and paste Coach Malzahn. I just knew the plays from when we were in college. We were one of the top offenses. I was like, I know how to make this offense work. That's what we did.
Yeah.
You know, it wasn't until later in my career where I started to grasp my own systems and concepts and start to think outside the box on how we could move the ball. But really the first school that I coached, James Logan, we had probably 6 Division I players, 2 guys that got drafted in baseball. Like, we were so good talent wise, it really didn't matter what you call it. I mean, you could call anything and it was going to be, you know, every 4 or 5 plays, it was going to be a touchdown by somebody, you know? So it wasn't a schematic, you know, thing at first.
Now, you mentioned that first stop, your first couple stops there, man. You're a head coach, I almost immediately. You spent some time at West Valley Community College. You know, what can you say about yourself, your characteristics that allow for you to have that high level of success, you know, so early in the profession? You know, using the copy paste system. You know, not knowing much about the other parts of the profession because you just hadn't experienced yet. How were you able to be so, be so successful so fast?
I think that, you know, my superpower is obviously being myself, my story, is being able to relate to kids. You know, when I grew up, I thought it was a curse that we moved every year, and I went to so many different schools. I was counting it the other day. Somebody had asked me, I went to, you know, 2 or 3 elementary schools. I had went to 5 middle schools, 5 high schools, 3 junior colleges, you know, and then I went to the University of Tulsa. So you got to think in all those different, I went to school in Atlanta. I went to school in, you know, I went to school in different places growing up. And that really just gave me the, you know, the language. I say everybody has a different language or a source of communication on different places that they're from.
Yeah.
And I'm just able to communicate with kids from, you know, whether you're from a trailer park, the project, from the suburbs, you know, high class, low class, whatever you classify that as, I'm able to communicate because I've lived in those areas and been in those situations and understand where people are coming from. I've had roommates and people that I was connected to that lived all over the country and world. So I'm able to, you know, connect with people without judgment, without, you know, being in a way where they feel comfortable to open up to me, share their goals and aspirations. And then, you know, I'm able to put a plan together, help them put a plan together on how we're going to take action and get that done through my story, you know, from being homeless and then, you know, ultimately making it to the NFL. Obviously, I didn't get to score touchdowns in the NFL, but I got paid by the NFL for multiple years from making the team. So, you know, that was one of the things that when people look at me, they feel inspired because they could look at a story of this guy was not supposed to make it. Mike Norvell, I remember him saying, like, your counselor, your principal, like, they said you will not make it.
Right.
And he was like, we got to get this degree, you know, and we got the degree from the University of Tulsa. We did all those things that we set out to do and starting off from being homeless. So I think that's one of the things that, aside from, you know, the football aspect of it, is just coming into a room and really building real genuine relationships where people feel open and comfortable to talk to me about anything. And then we put a plan together, a plan of action on how we're going to go accomplish dreams and goals and, you know, have success.
Yeah, I mean, as I look at that, those early stops, obviously transformational, probably, just within things that I can't find on paper, just within those athletes, within that community. But the stuff I can see on paper, as a head coach at St. Patrick, St. Vincent High School, led a 1-9 team to the state playoffs. 1-9 team the previous year, and then you're in the state playoffs once you arrive. Head coach at Waynesboro area high school back in Pennsylvania, led a team that was 1-10 the previous year to a conference title and first winning season in 22 years. To do it once sometimes is, I'm not going to say it's easy ever, but right? To do it once, okay, cool. But to do it multiple times on different parts of the map probably says there's a little bit of method to the madness. What was kind of some of the method to, from a football and X and O standpoint? It probably still is the same answer, some of the relational stuff, but how were you able to get the best out of those kids?
Yeah, the first thing I do, like I said, is create the relationship, and then we try to create a culture of success. What does the end goal look like? I always, we had successful people that would come to speak at the University of Tulsa. Coach Graham was, always about, how do we thrive as men and build generational wealth? And we had certain people come back, and I remember a guy always said that to think with the end of the movie in mind, what you want the final scene to be.
Yeah.
And I always just talk about, okay, what were the issues? I always ask, address the issues. What were the issues? Why didn't we win? Okay. And now how are we going to win? Putting a plan in place to develop a culture on every day. We're going to try to go 1-0 and create this mindset of anything is possible. And we're going to get after it every day. And, and then just accountability partners and the brotherhood and building all those things that make a team go. And then, we created schemes. I started to create schemes where there was a stop in there that I was at the Harker School. And when I was at the Harker School, we had 7 billionaires on the team. And these kids had not played football. These were not football players. These were, people from very affluent backgrounds, Asian and Indian kids, that had not been playing football their whole life. This was not a part of their culture. And we were able there to win games. And that's where, people like some of the drills and stuff that we do. I created all those drills when I was at that school. I was creating drills and I'm thinking of every possible way. How can I get these kids better? Then I started to think about man, how could we score points with these? You have to be creative. You have to find a way. And that's when I really started, I always call it the quantum leap, George Pickens put out this thing the other day, I do all-nighters about football. Me and Dan Casey kind of laughing about that, because when you think about that from a standpoint, there was 6 years where every night till about 3-4 in the morning, I'm taking notes and then waking up at 6 and then training my team. I'm taking all these notes and watching every offense that was ever created there. I'm like, all right, how do we don't have a good line, but we have a good receiver. We have a decent quarterback. We have how do we put all this together? And that's really where, people talk about the go-go offense. That it really started at St. Patrick, St. Vincent. I started running the offense. And then when I got to Waynesboro, then we got even more crazy with the formations that people see now. That's when we really started mixing and matching the formations. At St. Pat's, we were doing all types of crazy pass plays, all types of different concepts down the field that people are using in today's college football that, I used at different stops that I've been at through the years. So, those things started in high school, and, it was really out of, we're not good enough, but nobody wants to hear that. I just never wanted to tell a kid that would be contradictory to my story saying you can make it, you can do anything. Yeah. Look at how I made it, and then say, no, you're not good enough. You can't make it. Right. So I was like, man, I got to put a plan together for these kids that puts us on the cutting edge, that gives them a chance to win. And that's kind of what we did at St. Patrick, St. Vincent. And then we took it to Waynesboro, and then kind of, got into the college football world with it.
Oh, that's crazy, man. I've talked to you a ton about some of this stuff over the years, but I didn't know that was kind of the origin story. It just been at this one unique place where you had to think outside the box, do more with less, right? Well, 2015, you make the jump to the college ranks, first working as an offensive QC at Arizona State before taking a running back's job at Oklahoma Baptist. What led you to the decision to get back to that college level I know you were there initially as a player, but to get to the college level, and how did you go about finding these jobs? How were you able to kind of put yourself in position? Because that first collegiate job can be tough.
Yeah, really. I mean, if we're being fully transparent and trying to help people,
yeah,
I really wanted to stay a high school head coach. I really had no desire to go to college football. What actually happened was I had multiple college coaches coming in to see kids, and people just were not used to that at schools that had, like you said, you're talking about schools that not had winning seasons in 22 years.
Yeah.
So when football starts to raise $1 million and be big time in the school, and they're not used to that, they're like, whoa, what is going on? What was going on? And it was always an issue. So I started to think in my head, like I started to put some fillers out there. Like, I've been doing a pretty good job as a high school coach, started to send players to colleges, and college coaches started to kind of know who I was. And I remember guys like Taj LaPole came to my practice and was like, man, you run this thing like a college program. And Fred Gaducci was like, you run this like an NFL team, and college coaches started to give me some confidence to think like maybe I could coach in college. I never really wanted to, but I was like, okay. And so, I just got tired of going back and forth. And when you're 25 and 26 as a head coach, high school head coach, I'm sure there's some guys out there that are that young.
Yeah.
I didn't know everything. I was just trying to do it like an NFL program or a elite level college program. I wanted everything. Our kids traveled on chartered buses. We had polo shirts. We ate the best thing. Like I wanted it to be, what I saw, what I knew football as. And, everybody wanted to be my boss at that time.
Yeah.
when you're the young coach, everybody's my boss. The teacher's boss. I'm like, all right, let me just try college. So I actually went. This is a story about true. I want people to understand like how obsessed with the goal and dream you have to be. So I was talking to the assistant AD of football at Utah State. He went through about 400 or 500 resumes. He said, you have the best one. You got the job, man. Like, boom. So I packed my family up in the car. We drove 16 hours to Logan, Utah. We got a place. I'm like, I was still under the old school way of your word. We shake hands. That's your word. Boom. We're good. Yeah. And so I got there, and coach, the head coach at the time, I'm not going to say his name, but the head coach at the time was, he wasn't even there. He was like on vacation. He came back and he was like, bro, what are you doing working here? Like, and I'm like, he told me I was good to work here. Like, I'm like, I'm starting the job. I'm like getting recruits on campus. I'm like gung ho, let's go, And he was like, I don't know if it's going to work out here, and I'm like, whoa. So that was like, man, what do we do? So for, a couple weeks, I was thinking I was going to go to Oklahoma Baptist. Okay. And I had like a speeding ticket or something from like a long time ago. And it was like, it stopped my, my process to go to Oklahoma Baptist. Cause one of my players that I played with in college, he was at Oklahoma Baptist. He was the O-line coach. He was like, we need a running back coach, a receiver coach. You're perfect. Let's do it. And I was like, all right, perfect. And they like stopped my background check or something. And it was like a speeding ticket from, when I was like in the league or something. And I was like, okay, I'll get that taken care of. I paid the ticket, whatever. And then Norvell called me like, hey man, a spot opened up. And I was like, you're not playing. You're serious. He was like, yeah. I drove to Arizona. Boom. And I started with Arizona State. And so, God has a funny sense of humor and things work out a crazy way, but
right.
You got to be, I tell guys all the time, like, you got to be that obsessed with it. The first 4 or 5 years I coached, I lost money. I mean, I didn't make any money. I mean, I was giving money away, giving it back to the kids.
So once you get that opportunity there at Arizona State, after all the curves in the road there, what was kind of the eye-opening thing for you just been at the collegiate level on that side of the ball?
Yeah, I had to break down, like, the one thing is when you're in a room with a lot of elite coaches and guys who have been in the game. I mean, I'm in the room with Mike Norvell, obviously, Chip Long, Dale Alexander, Chris Thompson, guys that have been in the game a long time and had a lot of success. And really for me, I was just trying to observe and take it all in. It wasn't until Norvell told me to be like more assertive and insert myself that I tried to do that. Cause for me, like, I don't want to come into a room and try to be like, I'm taking over. I want to learn, observe, see what's going on and take notes. Cause I'm a very, note taker. So I was just trying to observe and check it out. And what I saw from those guys were, they were elite recruiters. They were great dads, and they were really focused on, just developing and creating a great offense together. However that took, from all their different stops, they put a great offense together and put a game plan to have success. And obviously that's why all those guys' careers, took off and where they went.
That's
but,
right.
I just kind of saw, like, at the high school level, it was always just me, creating the offense. I was the offense coordinator. I was the head coach. I was the strength coach. I was the teacher.
Yeah.
I'm like trying to do all these things. And I saw the combination and guys putting together great ideas, elite minds working together. And then I learned like the professionalism of, recruiting, how you do it, how you travel, how you set things up, how you bring guys on campus and, their families and, just learning I guess like just the professional side, I'd say, about, college football. There is a different element from being a high school coach to being a college coach. I still think that high school coaches have a lot of success in college because you have more personal skills. At college, if you're in college long enough time, it does really, you do start to see the ugly side of the business.
No doubt about it.
But there was a lot of great things that I learned from those guys and indebted to those guys. And I mean, I GA'd with Kenny Dillingham and Taylor Kelly. So Taylor Kelly's one of the best quarterback coaches out there. And, Kenny's a head coach now. So just seeing, there's a lot of great guys in those rooms.
What's funny, man, is I can vaguely remember this. I did a podcast with Dillingham, probably 5 years ago. And he has a not as, I don't think it's as good as your story, but it's very similar to how he got to Arizona State. I think he just got a call and he shot over there in the middle of the night and hung out. And I know he used to hang out over there, as a high school coach, just sticking around as well, man. So it's kind of crazy, as you mentioned. Like, that's kind of that, you got to be a fanatic for it. And because both you guys have had tremendous careers up to this point, both you guys have a very unique way that you ended up kind of at that starting point as well. So that's crazy, man. I didn't realize you guys kind of crossed over around the same time. Now, I do want to ask you this, man, because I know I've only known you kind of more on the back end. I'm trying to think when I went and met you. You might have been at Howard at the time, and so you were the voice that other people were looking at and taking notes from, and that's kind of who I've known you from at that beginning. So I don't know you any other kind of way. So I'm trying to think. You've had this crazy amount of success at the high school level. You kind of tooled your own offense to be successful and help guys regardless of talent level. And then you sit in this room and you're listening to these guys, and your coach nudges you to be a little bit more assertive and insert yourself into the dialogue. Did you do that? Did you start to talk a little bit more and maybe throw some of your ideas and input into the conversations?
Absolutely. And it got to a point where we're in games and I'm saying, Coach, we got the look. Yeah. It got to a point where I could actually say something and it actually held weight.
Right.
And I think that happened because I sat back and waited for a while. I was trying to, I always say, one thing that Coach Miles on, I always remember saying, like, when it's your deal, you can do whatever you want. Like, it's your,
yeah.
I was thinking like, it's their deal. Like,
right.
I'm just the guy in the background right now.
Yeah.
Like, this ain't my, I was just trying to keep relationships with the players and build them up. When I saw a coach, just go strain a guy and really be on him, I'm like, man, he's doing that because he loves you. He want to see you be successful. Yeah. Like, I'm trying to, be in the background and just, try to, do my role, not trying to overstep. And it got to a point where when the end of the year came where, I would say something and Mike would be like, yep, that's right. Boom. Let's go. Let's call it.
Yeah.
So I think that was the progression that I took where, I see a lot of young guys get in and, they either don't speak or they try to say too much.
Right.
And I think there's a very fine line of, you don't want to be in there in the back corner not saying anything because nobody knows what you're doing. And then you don't want to be a guy who, it's just up. I got all the ideas from the computer and I don't know why any of the ideas work. And I'm just saying stuff, just to say it, so.
Yeah, that's kind of why I got you into that question, because I do think that's something. I mean, I'd even say as a young coach, I was coaching Division I ball at just 26, 27 years old. And I'm in that room and it's like, man, where's my voice? Where do I belong? And I was a lot like you. I was a little bit more methodical before I came in there and just being like, hey, we need to run this, just trying to get in where you can fit in. But over the years, I definitely have seen people kind of have both approaches, and it's hard to have that balance and know where that fit is, and it's an important trait to know. So I appreciate you kind of talking about that a little bit. Now, you ultimately end up, whatever that speeding ticket situation was clears itself. You end up back at Oklahoma Baptist, or not, let me not say back. You end up at Oklahoma Baptist. Coach Isaiah Mallory to a school record 1,083 yards and all NCCAA honors. Tell me about that time to where you're not so much in the background anymore and you got to wear a lot of hats kind of at that level. I think they were NAIA at the time, although they're Division II now. So just tell me a little bit about the difference of now you're not a head coach. Now you're not kind of a guy in the background a little bit, but you got a role, you got a position, you got a room, you got a lot more responsibilities. What was that like?
Oh, that job was awesome. I think Coach Jensen giving me a chance there was, it was definitely a time where I needed that, transition to get myself back feeling like, okay, you're a guy, you gotta, cause I always tell guys, like, if you believe you're a real guy, like, you're going to get the opportunity to ball again. Like you'll get the ball again. Be ready to make the play when you get the ball again, And so for me, with that group, I played running back in Little League, bro. You know what I mean? Like so for me, that was a cool position because I had to really study, and develop a game plan to how to teach the running backs and create, especially, you talked about their Division II now, but that year we transitioned into Division II.
Oh, okay.
So,
yeah.
So that year I went there, it was like, man, we're about to play Harding and Henderson State. With these, like we got babies compared to what, we're about to go play, and so, I really love Mallory. He's actually an Army rank. Like the dude he's a stud. He's a great human. He's from Alito, Texas. We just talked, last week, cause I had posted his All-American video, and this dude he would come in the morning before practice. He would come after practice. And we did this little thing before practice started, where he would hit the sled, he would do conditioning because he wanted to be tired before practice started so he could practice at an elite level when he was tired.
Yeah. And,
there was a lot of good guys. There was Shahada Artberry. He's another running back. This dude, Division II stories are awesome.
Oh, yeah.
Like this dude was working 3 jobs, had 2 kids, was married, and he showed up to practice every day, worked his butt off, like, and now I think he's like the strength coach at Tulsa for the women's basketball, all the women's sports there. So there was just a lot of kids like that who had these stories where, it wasn't just given to them. Like they really had this, like, man, I really want to be a football player, and I'm working a job, and I'm married, and I'm, juggling all these hats. And, from there, I just think that how I've ran every position group that I've been a part of is to make sure everybody in my position group, like I always say, like one of the best things at Pitt, Texas, when I see receivers, even if they transferred and went somewhere else, they're like, thank you, coach. You taught me. Like I tell them, like as a grown man, bro, like the rent is due every month. Like daycare, bills for the kid. Like there ain't no like, oh, I don't got it this month, or oh, like no, like every day you got to get up, work, find a way, regardless how you feel as a man, you got to provide. So, I kind of instill that in the position group, and then make sure we're a team-based group. So it's not a one-man show. It's about everybody in the room. We talked about how you play without the ball determines how much you love your teammates. And we're trying to show the whole team how much we love them. And really just when you play like that, like at Pitt, for example, we had, I think 14 or 15 receivers in the room. All 14 of them played. On special teams, when I was at Hawaii, same thing. All the guys played. They made an impact in the game somewhere, whether it be special teams or as making a catch or, making a run, whatever it is, you know, I think if you really love the team and you're about winning, you'll find a way to impact the game, you know, and that's just the high school coach in me. Like I didn't, when I was a high school coach, everybody who could help the team win played. Like every single, you know,
Absolutely.
came from that Dabo Sweeney mindset of trying to put as many good players on the field as you can that can help us win.
That's right, man. Well, before we hop into like kind of, I won't say where your career takes off because it took off from the moment you got into it, but from that moment you take the OC job, I want to pause, and if you can reflect back over that 5-6 year period, this is a hard question. I love to hear the answer if you can make sense of one. But which one of those jobs would you say was the most transformational for you as a coach in your career? Just hearing the story, I can see where about 4 of them could be an answer, or all of them could be an answer. But was there one that just really stands out and you say, hey, man, this is where I learned how to be who I am today?
Yeah, I'd really say that Waynesboro job really prepared me for every possible thing that has come my way, you know, since that point. You know, having to go to a school where, you know, I was the first Black teacher to work in the school, you know, having to, you know, like go there and, you know, I remember my first meeting there. I'll never forget this. A kid stood up and said, like, they played my video, you know, like they introduced me. They played a video of me like overcoming and getting to the NFL that was like on ESPN or something. And a kid said, why would you come here? We suck. We're the worst team in Pennsylvania. They were the last ranked team in Pennsylvania. Waynesboro High School was. And so I'll never forget that. I mean, I looked at him and I'm like, hello, good morning. You know, like, whoa. You know what I mean? Like,
welcome.
Yeah. And I was like, man, my work is cut out for me.
Yeah.
You know, and, you know, it was just about like, we transformed that team from 30, 35, 40 players to 105. We raised $1 million on a capital campaign for a turf field. We sold out games. I mean, we had a game where we had like 10,000 people, 15,000 people, which is a lot.
Yeah,
you know, I know
sure.
in Texas, that's like, you know, that's a JV game in Texas. But, you know, in Pennsylvania, that's a lot of people at a game.
Yeah, no doubt.
You know, and we were doing it in a town where it had you know, like winning was not a thing there, you know, and beating teams and, you know, and the offense, like getting where it was like, if something breaks down, I know how to fix it now. You know, like I know how to change things. I know how to, you know, I know how to work with groups and players and move people in the right direction to get us to win, regardless. And, you know, I think that job, like just the character I was as a man, you know, as a coach, you know, all those things put it together where I had confidence to go. That gave me the confidence to go anywhere. I'm like, man, I could go anywhere and
right.
and coach.
That's right, man. Well, that's awesome to hear. Well, now let's go ahead and pick back up where we were. So, you know, after that season at Oklahoma Baptist, you get the opportunity to be the offensive coordinator / quarterbacks coach at Howard. I mean, this is 3 years at the collegiate level. Or really, I mean, technically 2 years at the collegiate level. You're already offensive coordinator. This is 7-8 years in the profession. You're 27, 28 years old, something like that, and maybe a little bit older. I might be off there, but you're an offensive coordinator at an FCS program. You called plays before, been successful before with it, so that's not the new part. But what was unique about that situation? What was some learning curves, some hardships for you in that first time calling at the collegiate level?
Yeah, that situation was unique from the standpoint of, you know, I felt like, you know, I remember I showed them our high school offense. And, you know, there was only one guy who knew my high school offense, and that was the head coach who hired me. Okay. So Coach London had saw me when I was at Waynesboro. I went to Virginia when he was the head coach of Virginia. We had beat some predominantly, you know, some teams that had success in 7-on-7 tournaments. There at Virginia. And he told me when he got the Howard job, he was like, you ready to run that high school offense? And I'm like, yeah, coach, I'm ready to roll. Like, let's go, you know? And he was like, all right, well, you got you know, he waited a while. You know, Coach London's very methodical in his approach, you know, old school cat. So he waited a while. He gave me about 2 weeks, and I'm thinking like, man, I don't know. And then he called me and I was like, man, I'll be on the first plane tomorrow. And I was in D.C. and, kind of the rest is history. But the thing that was the most challenging was to go in there, and show a bunch of men who had been coaching a long time and knew football,
right?
And the way that they knew football as college coaches and different things, that we're going to run a high school offense. And I got this, huddle tape that I want to show you guys. And them looking at me like, we about to do what? How we going to win games with that?
Right.
And it wasn't that they, disrespecting me or anything. It's just like, if you were a college coach and you got this guy who's going to be a coordinator, young, I was 28, 27, 28, like, what? We're going to do what?
Yeah.
And so that was definitely one of the unique things. And then, we didn't have enough linemen to scrimmage against each other, offense and defensive linemen, so we were going on air. And I'm like, how are we going to be a physically tough downhill, all the things that we preach and how we want our offense to be, how are we going to do that? And I just kept remembering, remember Waynesboro, like in the back of my mind, I'm like, bro, we won at Waynesboro with this, it'll work. Just have confidence, have faith, and, ever since grandma put, God has a great plan for you, not an average, mediocre, barely get by plan. I was like, God's going to work it out. It's going to be good. We're going to find a way. And every day, just putting confidence in the kids, it's going to work. Everything that we talked about every day was all about building their confidence. We didn't tell them what they couldn't do. It was just like, yo, this is going to work. They're like, no one's ever seen our offense, so it's going to be hard for them to stop. Let's have faith in it. And because we didn't have enough linemen, the thing at Howard was how fast can we go?
Yeah.
Right. We started getting 140, 160 reps of practice on air because we're going to have to just get these teams winded. And then we'll be able to lean on them in the fourth quarter. Then we'll be able to be a physical downhill run team when they can't breathe, when they're tired. And, that's what ultimately helped us be successful there.
Yeah, man. I've always loved that. Football is football when it gets down to it. But some of the things at the high school level where you don't really control who walks through those doors, you can't recruit a athletic quarterback because that's the type of offense you got. You just got to take what kind of guy walks through the door, man, and been able to be creative in ways to be productive. And obviously that was just, you're like, hey, okay, we don't got enough guys. Our line is weakness. Let's go fast. Let's wear them out. Let's even things up in the third and fourth. And that's just that, I know people are capable of that at other levels, but I think in high school it's just so second nature to be able to just adapt and be ready to adjust. 2018.
I mean, our right tackle on that team, Mario, was 225. We rushed for 220 yards a game with a 225-pound right tackle.
Yeah, man. I'm just about to brag on what you kind of accomplished there. 2017 and 2018 offensive coordinator, 4th nationally in yards per completion, 15th in total yards, 478 point yards per game, which is crazy. 6th in passing offense and 21st in scoring offense, 7 first team all conference players. Took what you had, got busy there, man, and you didn't seem like there was much of a slowdown. I do want to ask this one question just real quick before I transition to the next one over as we hit the William and Mary. But as a head coach, I'm assuming you were calling plays. As a head coach in high school, you were calling plays, on the field because you had to be involved in everything that's going on in game, timeouts, and all that kind of stuff. Did you slide up into the box as your first time OC at the collegiate level, or did you stay down on the field like you were used to?
No, I've always been on the field.
Always been on the field.
I mean, you just get used to seeing it.
Yeah, you say if you see it a certain way early, and that's kind of what you like and prefer. I was just curious. I know some guys will never come down from the box, regardless, what's going on. I just curious if you tried to make that adjustment. Now, after that time at Howard, you make the transition over to William and Mary, where you again able to find offensive success. You really, I knew because we had conversations. I'm pretty sure I did a little write up on your. I'm pretty sure it was a Howard offense at that point in time. But the go-go, I think that's when it really kind of became a little bit more known amongst the coaching ranks, was more William and Mary. I don't know if that actually is exactly right on the timeline, but I feel like that's when I remember guys talking about it, is when you were at William and Mary. How were people coming by to see you? Were they coming in and asking questions? I know people were tweeting about it and you were able to see it on social media, but how were you handling all the people that were kind of coming and asking about your offense and potentially leading to other jobs and things like that?
Yeah, I think Howard, it was actually your podcast. We had beat UNLV in the biggest upset.
Oh yeah, that's right.
College football history.
That's right.
And we had did the podcast, and then it kind of just went up from there.
Yeah.
And
I guess
I just remember. I mean, there's a lot of guys like Dan Casey, Isaac Newland, the OC at Liberty, like all these guys were coming by, and there was a lot of, influx of people. And I just always was like, all right, y'all learned our offense, let me learn your offense. Mm-hmm. So we would flip back and forth. It was actually pretty cool. Like you would have to like really be in the room. I mean, dudes just switching their laptop onto the projector. And at Howard, our offices were like in the bottom of a dorm room. So like we were like, coaches would be like, this is where you're, and I remember I always got to give love to my girl, Nicole, at The Athletic. She came and did a story on, Kalen Newton and, because he was a back-to-back All-American, and we had offensive lineman, Gerald Wright, he was an All-American, and receiver, Jaquez Desert, who went to Sam Houston. And after we left there, we had all these All-Americans and all-conference guys, and people were like, what the heck is going on at Howard? So when we transitioned over to William and Mary, it was kind of the same thing. Guys wanted to come learn. Guys wanted to know about the offense. And, I had spoke about this on another podcast. It was just kind of crazy to me that, with all these people coming and all the, I remember speaking at the convention and people were standing, how it is. And there's people standing up, people fighting over seats. And I'm like, nobody from Power 5 or nobody wants to, everybody wants to be a receiver coach or, I'm like, okay. All right. So, it was definitely a great time, to see some of the work of, like you said, those first 4 or 5 years really pay off, into, the college ranks and it get noticed. But for me, it's just like, I've always had the personality, like there's just more, like there's more we could do. There's more players to help. There's more kids that, need to be put in successful situations. Like there was never like, I never had time to pat myself on the back. When you grow up in Section 8 and you're like, the way I grew up, I had 3 jobs when I was 10 years old. So I'm thinking like, man, I got more stuff to do. Like I got to go on to the next thing. I never really give myself time to be like, oh yeah, that was so great. Like we gotta move on and more work to go.
Yeah. Well, William and Mary, you kind of did more of the same there. Helped double the scoring average, increased offensive yards per game by nearly 100 yards per game, which is unbelievable transition just for in 1 year to be able to get that kind of production moving forward. But as you were talking there, you were talking about all these people coming to see you, and then the opportunity maybe to get a FBS offensive coordinator job, but a lot of those opportunities end up being wide receiver coaches. You end up taking in 2020 the receiver job at Hawaii. Talk a little bit about that transition of maybe pulling that title back away from you and going back to the other side of the country out over there in the ocean. Why'd you make that decision?
Yeah, when I went to Hawaii, I mean, it was awesome from the standpoint of it was Coach, it was GJ Kinney, it was people that I had familiar faces with, former coach, former teammates, and we were out on an island. I mean, Hawaii is the most desolate place in the world. Like when you look at that GPS, bro, you're in the middle of the ocean. Like you're not getting off the ocean.
That's right.
And, I always say, thank God for the ball to save my life. Football's taken me all types of places I never thought I'd go, and, Coach Graham was like, man, you've done a great job. I want you to come out here, help me out. start this process out here at Hawaii. And then COVID strikes, so we're getting ready. We're getting all excited. We're getting dialed in. And then COVID happens, the lockdown, shut down. And then they kind of take us off the island. So we're, back, relax, hanging with family, relaxing. We're all thinking the world's end. Everybody was in that same kind of scenario.
Yeah.
You kind of put it on a pause. And I always, my mom always says, like, God knows when you need a break or a pause in action. And, that was a perfect time for me because, William and Mary was really, it was a challenging job. There was a lot of things there that were challenging, for me. And then, going into COVID, it was a good time to just reset, relax, remember why all those things. And then when I got back on the island, I just spent all my time with the kids. I remember, like, I don't cook I cook one time a year. I cook on Thanksgiving. I remember, like, cooking for the kids, just hanging with them every day. And I'm still close with, really close with all those receivers that I coached at Hawaii. And, that was just it was a great setup. I mean, from the standpoint of, being with GJ again, because me and GJ always wanted to play together. He had the red shirt when he transferred from Texas. So, when I was a senior, so he redshirted that year. And we had always stayed in contact. I remember I went and saw him when he was with the Eagles. When I was a high school coach, I brought some of my kids up there to meet him and, when he was on the Eagles. And, we were just putting plans together and recruiting. That's when the portal first kind of opened up, that type of deal. And we're recruiting kids without visits to Hawaii. We're like, bro, we can't afford to put you on a visit, but we want to get you out here because we're just hustling and trying to find a way to get kids out there. And we were able to recruit, do different things and, just putting together a game plan and really learning how to develop quarterbacks and stuff from him. That really were my, I say my PhD in learning quarterbacks. You have to get it from a quarterback. Yep. If you didn't play quarterback, you have to learn that position from an actual quarterback who I think that actually played the position, me personally. Mm-hmm. I think it's good to learn from somebody who can actually tell you how it felt to have the ball in their hands. Not just, seeing a coach talk about it in a video, like actually seeing a guy who's been in that, foxhole, as you say, being back there, sitting back there. So learned a lot from him, learned a lot from, being back with Coach Graham. And, it was a blessing to be on the island and, have some success with those guys and then ultimately transition and leave the island after a year. But, I thought that opportunity was great because it reset my focus and got me back to why you're in coaching. What is this all about? Are we helping kids every day? Are you mentoring every day? Those things that, ultimately is what got me started in the profession.
Yeah, no doubt, man. Well, I didn't know much to that story in terms of obviously everybody was dealing with the COVID, but a much needed reset for you or whatever it was to get in a good mental space and then go and do some more professional development, really go learn quarterbacks. And so that's great that you took that opportunity, number one, to do both, to take care of yourself a little bit and also make sure you're sharpening those tools. So, after that 1 year at the island, on the island, you take an opportunity at Pitt and, have a extremely talented receiver that you were able to develop and continue to help grow. The 2021 Biletnikoff winner in Jordan Addison, first ever ACC championship, Chick-fil-A Bowl appearance. Just a very special year through and through. Just kind of timed out for you to be there and you to be a big part of the development of that wide receiver. What was it like? What was it just that experience of? I mean, I coach receivers, man. I would kill to get a Biletnikoff winner. You know what I'm saying? To have somebody with that type of recognition. What was it like just to be able to coach that type of talent, tool that type of talent, and let them see the fruits of his labor, and then as a team also be able to see the fruits of your labor with the championship and all that good stuff?
Yeah, man. There were so many good people at Pitt that put me in that position to even get that job. I didn't know Coach Narduzzi. We didn't have a relationship or, anything like that prior to that. But there was a lot of great people that championed me in the city of Pittsburgh where I'm from. And I appreciate all those people. I mean, even Coach Wanstedt, old Coach Wanstedt reached out for me to Coach Narduzzi about, when the position came available as a guy that I would, that could fit the role, and, Tony, Kenny's quarterback coach from New Jersey, guys that I had known for a long time. A lot of people had reached out and put me in position to even, get in that room. And I remember the one thing I will give Coach Narduzzi credit for that coaches could take from him. He has a great interview process on how he actually sees a guy be a real ball coach. A lot of interview processes, just being honest. I mean, they're not, you don't get a chance to see if a guy can actually coach football. It's either, you're getting a job or you're not getting a job, or the guy, you know what I mean? You don't really get a chance to show, like, if it's me versus those 5 other guys who've been coaching for 20 years, like, how do I put myself in a position to say that I can do exactly what they can do, but maybe a little bit better, and I can show you why and I can show you how. And, he gave you the opportunity to get in there in front of the whole staff, entire building, get in there and really break down. I mean, I was in there teaching stance, start, video, on the board, like showing what my guys did at Hawaii, like able to really break it down. So I will give him, kudos for that. As far as, Jordan and, those guys, I think ultimately you have to give, a lot of credit to Chris Beatty and Andre Powell for finding the kid in Frederick, Maryland, which, is not a football hotbed by any means, and Jordan's mom. I mean, Jordan, I just talked to him yesterday. He's sitting courtside, but, he's living life now. I'm so proud of that dude. But, the one thing that, really, I'm going to give him his flowers now. All the coaches he had, all the people he had around him, he invited me to sit with him and his family at the draft. And that was one of the things where I was like, man, I guess I really did make an impact on it. Because kids always say, hey, coach, I love you,
right.
But you don't really, you don't ever really get to see.
Yeah.
And so one of the things, I always tell people, like, Jordan is a combination of every kid, I used to tell Jordan, like, to whom much is given, much is required. Like, to every kid that was in that receiver room, because we had a lot of talented receivers in that room. They weren't obviously Biletnikoff winners, but there were some talented guys in that room. And all the receivers and players that I had coached, I'd put everything into Jordan. I gave Jordan a game plan. I will never take any credit for Jordan's athletic ability, his drive, like that. That's from mom, God, that's him. But the one thing I will say about Jordan, when I gave him the plan of, this is what you do to become an All-American. These are all the things I did to go from homeless, junior college walk-on, not good enough. These are all the drills I did. Here's all the drills that I saw in the NFL that NFL receivers did. Here's all these things. I gave him this whole process on how to be the best receiver that you could possibly be, and everything I told him to do, he did it with a smile on his face, and I remember he gave me his goals, like, and I'm like, bro, you got to think bigger than that. Like, your talent is like, I played receiver. I'm looking at him like, bro, I played receiver. I know what a good receiver looks like, feels like. I was I was on a team with Ted Ginn. Like, I've been on a team and been a part of, like, great receivers. Like, I've seen what a great receiver looks like. And you're better. You know what I mean? Like, you have to get your mind thinking a lot bigger. So I was like, tomorrow, man, come back with your wildest dreams. Like, think about some stuff that's, like, the wildest stuff you could ever think about. He came back. He's like, Biletnikoff, this, championship, boom. Everything he said that he wanted to do, he accomplished. First round pick, all those things. And I was like, all right, this is the plan on how you do all these things. And then I'm like, bro, you got to be the best teammate too. Like, cause you if you want to have these goals, like, you want to be a winner too, right? Like, and so then I'm like, all right, now you got to hang with the quarterbacks every day. Kenny Pickett got to be your best friend. I don't care if you and Kenny Pickett don't do anything the same. Like, you got to start hanging out with Kenny. You got to, like, be in Kenny's hip pocket. You want him to throw you the ball every play. Boom. And then I'm like, you got to know every receiver spot. You got to know the offense like you're Coach Whipple. Go sit in there with Coach Whipple and learn why he came up with this pass concept. You know what I mean? And he started drawing on the book, like, every possible thing you could think of that you would want a player to do, he did it. I remember, people don't notice, at midnight, jugs machine. Coach Marion, I'm on the jugs. What you doing? Where you at? I'm on the jugs. 150 a day, 200 a day. Like the dude was so locked in, and he got everything that he worked for. You know, obviously you want to see somebody who puts in that type of work and has that type of mindset, get everything that they work for. And he's been able to do it. And it hasn't been a fluke, you know, like he went, you know, some people say, I have a little saying that I say to the kids, one great year can change your life. And some people support it. Some people kind of make fun of it, but I've seen it be true over and over again for players. And he's obviously maximized that, and, you know, he'll continue to do great things.
Yeah, man. And let me say this to you. Let me give you your flowers. I think one of the biggest things I probably appreciated from just our relationship over the years is, you know, first it was just learning that go stuff when you were doing it early on, just picking your brain on it. And then, you know, I know a lot of people are attracted to it and love talking about it. Cool. And but the relationships I see that you have with your players from Hawaii, you know, when you posting on, you know, I follow you on IG, you posting up with guys that you coached in high school years ago. And it's just like, man, that's authentic, you know. Cool. I mean, I love watching you score points and all that stuff. And I know that's what pays our bills and that's how we support our family, man. But like the ability to build those relationships, it kind of transitioned right to my next deal here, because the following year after Pitt, you're at the University of Texas. Coach Xavier Worthy, you leave, you're out, and just how much back and forth, you know, as he was getting ready for that draft that I saw going on between the two of you, even a year removed from you being his coach, like you were still a major impact in his life. And hopefully I'm not speaking too much for him there, but it was just evident that he really saw your impact. And so kind of, you know, love to talk about the Texas stop a little bit, but more than anything, why is building those authentic relationships just so much of a marquee of who you are as a ball coach?
Yeah, I always tell the kids, like, the love part of it is free. Like, that is just, for me, that's what kept me in football as a kid. You know, like, my mom's an only child, my dad's an only child. My brother's 7 years older than me. He was not a football player. You know, so football for me was always family. And when you're growing up the way I did, coaches were my dad, my uncle, you know, like that's what they were. That's what they had to be. There's so many families. I'm so grateful and humble. The way you see me act is because, like, that is like how I got through life. Like, I got through life because of football. I always did. All the great things that happened to me, other than my kids, like, have came through football and my relationships through football. Yeah. I mean, I would have starved as a kid if I didn't play football. I mean, all the families that fed me and took me in, and, you know, all those things. So I always just try to keep it grassroots level. And I know people want you to, because you're at a certain status and title, I just never operated that way, you know. And if it takes me longer to be authentic and be myself, I mean, it just takes me longer. But for me, I just always wanted to keep it true to the reason was why I love football and those relationships. And football is family to me. The players, the people, their parents. Like, me and Jordan's mom still tell each other, "I miss you." Like, you know, like I talked to Xavier. Like, that's just what it is. I mean, those were relationships where you talk to someone every single day and you're in their life every day. Like, you had to have some type of impact and love for each other to do that every day. And we did it with, you know, I always say, like, a coach should be like when you pick up your kids from, you know, when you first start taking your kids to daycare or kindergarten, they don't want to go. They've been with their parents for their whole life. And now they got to get dropped off and they're like, what is going on? And when you pick them up, they are in a full sprint, like, Daddy, Mother, you know, like, that's what a great coach. I remember every time I saw Norvell, even though he would stress me out, I'd be happy to see Norvell or Mount, you know, like all the great coaches that I had throughout the years. Keith Hutchison, my little league coach. I mean, if I saw that dude right now, we both start crying. I mean, literally every time we see each other, we just start crying. You know, like, that's what a coach should feel like to a kid. You know what I mean? So I've just always tried to keep that in perspective of, you know, when I'm working with these kids.
Yeah, man. Well, I kind of leaped into Texas there a little bit, and I'm getting kind of close on time, so I'm gonna speed the question up. But I do would love to talk about it. Now, I grew up in Texas, as a Texas high school football player. I don't care where you ended up. Everybody had a burnt orange shirt in that closet somewhere. It was the place you wanted to go as a Texas kid. And it's crazy that, I remember playing against 2005 national championship team and 2008 team that went to the national championship, didn't win. And it didn't matter if it was 2012, 2013, down year, up year. Like that's what gets talked about in Texas, University of Texas football. What was it like to kind of have that spotlight on you? I mean, I'm not saying this is your first big job. Obviously, Pitt is a huge job on the ACC. It did a tremendous job that year, but you're all of a sudden in the Big 12, transition to SEC now. But what was it like having that spotlight on every last thing that you're doing, even as a position coach? Just a little different light at this type of job.
Yeah, I mean, I'll segue this in so we can finish. But Xavier, you talked about Xavier earlier. I'd known Xavier since he was 14 or 15. Everybody in California, because I was a high school head coach in California, they're like, Xavier's the one, man. You got to help him, mentor him, da-da-da. You're one of the guys who knows people, and you can get them connected to the right people. And me and Xavier talked like every single day. I remember my daughter one time was like, y'all got to FaceTime every day? Like, you talk to him every day, and that's my baby. You know what I mean? Like, that's my guy. And so when the Texas job came available, the receiver job came available, he was like, Coach, he's blowing me up. Him and his mom are blowing me up. I'm like, what's wrong? You good? Like,
yeah.
what happened? And he's like, the job is open, the receiver job. I'm like, boy, I ain't coming to no Texas. Like, I don't know Sark. Like, like, I don't know the head coach. And Sark hit me up. I'm like, like the head coach of Texas? He's like, yeah, what's going on? And the one thing I loved about Sark, I'm going to give Sark his flowers on a couple things, but the one thing I loved about Sark was it had been a long season at Pitt. Obviously when you go play the championship game, conference championship game, then you go to a big bowl game. I'm like, bro, it's been a long season. Like, I'm going to see my kids as soon as this. Like, I'm going on vacation as soon as this game is over with, as soon as this bowl game is over with. And I remember it was a lot of people that, I got, there was probably like 3 or 4 really big interviews that I had set up, but I was like, I'm not interviewing nowhere till I see my kids. And if you guys can't respect that, then I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah.
And Sark was like, well, I'll be there tomorrow. You want to go to lunch? And I was like,
like that.
Sark will be successful. He's a real recruiter. You know what I mean? Sark knows how to get it done.
Yeah.
And I said, all right, Coach, we're going to lunch. And boom, we kind of hit it off. And, and at Texas, the one thing I can say is I really love because my mindset for football is like Texas. That's why I was, when Todd Graham recruited me and he had that mindset of, we're going to do it big. We're going to, have that, because he was a Texas high school football coach.
Yeah.
And I really love how all the Texas high school, I tell people all the time now, like, I thought I was doing it big in Pennsylvania and California when I was coaching. Like, we try to do it at an elite level. But when you go to Texas, man, like 6 a.m., there's 300 kids out there, 40 coaches, whistle blowing, music blasting, and it's rolling. I mean, that's real ball. Yeah. Like, them coaches are some real football coaches that really are not just real football coaches from the standpoint that they, really get after it with kids, is that they just have an elite mindset on doing it big and making sure you get the best out of the game.
Yeah. And,
just being at Texas, I mean, the people embraced me. I thought it was an amazing job, amazing opportunity to learn from Sark, just how he thinks schematically, because the dude is very creative, a high level, football coach, and just learning the recruiting from, guys like Banks that had been at Bama for so long, Jeff Banks. And, I remember me and Coach Choice were like, I love my dog Tashard Choice. We like, Coach, we gonna do this a little different, and he's like, what you mean? And we start blasting the music and having karaoke with the families. And we created an atmosphere at Texas where, guys like Chris Gilbert, like, I'm going to give him some credit. Like, people don't see CG in the background, but I call him the point guard because he's always making things happen and leading to these connections. And he put me in front of all the Texas high school football coaches and said, like, Brennan's one of my guys, and made me feel like I was they made me feel like I was a Texas high school football coach, I came from Texas, so there was a lot of love in Texas, and I really loved the people there. And, the cowboy hat started in Texas. I always been, a part of the boots and, country in my own right growing up. But, the hat thing started when I got to Texas, and, I just really appreciated being at Texas. Ultimately for me, when you talk about the opportunity to leave Texas, I was actually not going to leave Texas at all. I feel like I need to address this, but I was not going to leave. I had no desire to leave Texas. I liked the situation. I liked Sark, and I knew we would have a really good team.
Mm-hmm.
The next season, even though we were losing some key players, I thought we'd have a really good team.
Yeah.
Coming back, and ultimately they had a good year. But Barry Odom called me with OC and quarterback job, and I'm like, and he's like, I know it's going to be hard for you to leave Texas, and I'm like, you keep telling everybody you want to be an OC and a quarterback job. And I just looked at guys through the profession for years that, always told me that they had those aspirations, and they were so proud of me when I was at Howard and William & Mary, because a lot of, people that look like me don't get the opportunity to be OC and quarterback coaches at the FBS level. And, I really started to think about that, like, man, you got to go do it. Cause I had turned down a couple jobs to be a OC and quarterback coach. And, with that UNLV situation, I was like, man, God has a funny sense of humor. The school that we, at Howard got kind of known for now is calling me, for that opportunity. And I'd known Barry for a while, and Barry hired me off of AFCA.
Wow.
He had saw me at a convention speak, and he said, man, that stuff is really hard for a defense to stop. We had shook hands. He was like, man, one day you're either going to hire me or I'm going to hire you.
That's awesome, man.
And that's how it worked, and he didn't, and I love Coach Odom, he didn't make me feel like, are you going to run that or do this? Or, he didn't make me feel weird or make me interview 6 times or anything crazy. He was like, man, I trust you. Let's do it. Let's make it happen.
Yeah.
And, we've ultimately had, decent success at UNLV.
No doubt about it, man. Well, I know everybody kind of knows the success that you had here at UNLV kind of brings us up to current. But before I let you go, I definitely want to hit on something. Probably something I couldn't be more proud of now that I'm out of that profession is just what we've been able to establish here with that 35 under 35 program. And more than anything, just looking up and seeing the amazing things that majority of those guys that have been a part of that program are doing. You've been one of my first classes, one of my early classes when I took this job. I know it was a while ago, but what did that opportunity mean to you, and why should a guy apply for that?
Yeah, I mean, that thing just opens you up, and I think once you know better, you do better.
Yeah.
And you're in a room with men that you would not be in a room with, like men that have been in this profession and doing it at a high level for a long time. I remember, I'll never forget, I didn't know anything about Coach Cutcliffe other than he coached the Manning.
Yeah.
And so sitting there hearing his story and how he came up the hard way and got to where he was at in coaching. And, I can still, just this off season, say, Coach Franklin, I need to talk to you, because I met him at the 35 on 35 deal. And he was like, all right, hit me up. Boom. And we're on the phone. He's mentoring me. And it just puts you in rooms that you wouldn't be in, and I always encourage guys to apply for that. Don't worry about what your resume says right now. If you really believe in yourself and think you're a quality coach, you're going to be around other quality coaches, and it develops relationships and opens and expands your mind. And ultimately, when you expand your mind, then you start to put more knowledge in there. Then you're able to go back and help the kids, help programs, and take your career off to where you want to take it to and feed your family. And so, that program is awesome, man. Like anybody who coaches football, like the opportunity to be in that room and just hear the guys that come back speak, the guys that you would never, the giants, you guys have the giants of football in there, and you're like, whoa, I'm about to take notes from this dude. I remember just being in there like, man, Coach Cook, I'm like, can I record? I'm trying to record and write at the same time. Like, and just that fraternity of being in that room, I think it definitely helps you. I mean, that was an awesome opportunity and experience.
Good, man. Why, once again, I appreciate applying, but how you've elevated it as well. Continue to make that program something special just by what you're doing on a day-to-day basis, man. But hey, before I let you go, just want to give you the opportunity to plug your social medias, just in case anybody who hadn't heard of you yet, we can give you a follow, keep up with your journey, ask questions, and all that good stuff.
Yeah, I'm just on Twitter as my name and Instagram as my name, Brennan Marion.
All right, man. Well, we'll make sure to link that in the show notes. As always, just good to see you, brother, and wishing you the best, and look forward to seeing you soon, okay?
All right. Appreciate you. Thank you, man.
All right, man.
CoachComm has been delivering tough headsets for tough teams for more than 31 years. It's why 97% of FBS teams and thousands of high schools across the country rely on CoachComm. Get the best for your team. Visit CoachComm.com for more info.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of Inside the Headset, presented by CoachComm. If you'd like to learn more about this week's episode, head over to AFCA.com. There, you can access every episode and find corresponding show notes. Remember, you can catch every episode of Inside the Headset presented by CoachComm on wherever you get your podcasts, including Spotify, Apple, and YouTube. While you're there, we'd love for you to take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast. Your feedback helps us improve and grow. Keep up with the latest news by following us on social media. Connect with us at Inside the Headset, and remember to tag us when you share your favorite episodes. For more updates on all things AFCA, be sure to follow the @WeAreAFCA social media accounts. If you're not a part of the AFCA community yet, visit AFCA.com to join thousands of NFL, college, and high school coaches nationwide and across the globe. Elevate your coaching game with an AFCA membership. You'll gain exclusive access to the annual AFCA convention, magazine, digital library, and AFCA Insider email. Stay up to date with the latest stories and news on the AFCA website. More than just a convention, the AFCA offers continuous education, guidance, networking, and more. Celebrate the past and shape the future with the AFCA. It's about fostering exceptional coaches who create outstanding teams and even better individuals. Invest in your skills and make a lasting impact today by engaging with the AFCA. Your journey starts here.